Madam President, good morning. Still morning, good afternoon, I'm sorry. I rise to make a very brief intervention on this very auspicious occasion, which is a special sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly on the occasion of our 40th anniversary of independence. Madam President, let me start by, of course, recognizing Lady Sheila Daniel, who's in the gallery, and paying homage to the Honorable Joseph Parry, who would have been afforded the privilege to speak moments ago as a former Premier and leader of this island. Let me greet, of course, my colleagues on this side, my colleagues on the other side, and to say, Madam President, thank you to you and your team, thank you to the legal advisor for the work that went into making this possible. Indeed, I recall the legal advisor raising the matter with me and indicating it would be a good idea. And we agreed that it would be a good idea to have this sitting. So thank you very much for accommodating us. The purpose of today was really not intended to be political, nor for us to engage in the usual back and forth. The purpose of today was really intended to celebrate our independence, where we have been and where we hope to go. The truth is that we have made giant strides in 40 years. And Madam President, the House and the people listening and those here in the gallery would have heard all of the strides. I need not go over well-trodden ground in saying from whence we have come. I believe that those of us who are at my age understand all that has been said, because many of us are old enough to have actually experienced it. I want our people to reflect, Madam President, on what I call the audacity of those who conceptualize that St. Kitts and Nevis of 104 square miles and roughly 50,000 souls could aspire to be an independent nation. In a world where we are continually told that we're too small, we must stay to the back, we must be quiet and sit down, we must pay homage to those who had the courage, and I will say it again, the audacity, to think that they could achieve this feat, and that they could, Madam President, stand with the other nations of the world, all of whom are bigger than us, with the exception of just, I believe, 2 or 3, and to represent the interests of our people. I reflect, as I speak, that the Honorable Prime Minister of our country and his team were just at the UN General Assembly in New York, standing on the same stage as the US President, the same stage as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the same stage as all the leaders of all the countries in the world, and speaking to the world on a world stage on behalf of these 50,000 souls that call St. Kitts and Nevis home. I believe, Madam President, that this is a remarkable achievement, that we have been engaged in a remarkable experiment in governance, in nationhood, and in progress. Has it been easy? Of course not. Have there been mistakes? Absolutely. Have we been forced to make sacrifices? Yes. But who among us could deny that in 40 years this country has grown in leaps and bounds from whence we were? And listen to all of the presentations. And I reflect that for those who are listening, and for those who may not know our history, some may feel that only some people contributed to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to say that that is not so. And that all of us who have had the privilege of serving within government, in other institutions, civil society, that all of us must be celebrated because all of us are making our contribution. We may debate whether that contribution is big or small, but all of us, Madam President, are making our contribution. And we cannot talk about the progress that we have seen in our country without, of course, referring to the father of Nevis, the Right Honorable, Right Excellent, Dr. Simeon Daniel, our national hero, without referring to the national heroes on St. Kitts, including on the division, Nathaniel France, without referring to all those who would have stood in this very house, a creature and construct of our Constitution. And those were Sir Simeon, who started it, the Honorable Vance Winkworth Amory of blessed memory, who continued, the Honorable Joseph Parry, that we've just heard of, and now I am here for such time as God will permit me to serve in this capacity. I believe that it is important for us to pay homage to all who would have served, because it is not right to suggest that somehow development started with some and then suddenly stopped, and then only restarted again and suddenly stopped. Development is a continuum, and each of us is making our contribution, and each and every contribution made to nationhood and to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis should be recognized and applauded, because I believe that it is important. No one man is an island. All of us must make our contribution to make this country what it is. A point was made, Madam President, as an indication of how far we've come, that we look around now in St. Kitts and Nevis, and more specifically our beloved island of Nevis, and we see a large non-national community. I would have recalled my father, of blessed memory, telling me about the days when Nevisians left by any means possible. I attended a funeral recently of Mr. Bertram Roach, one of our centenarians who passed. And in the eulogy, they said to the church that he had stowed away in a boat to get to Trinidad. That's how desperate things used to be. That people would stow away in a boat to get to anywhere but Nevis. Here we are now, 40 years on, and people are doing anything to get to Nevis. And I believe that that speaks volumes to what we have achieved here, despite what you hear. Some of us, it appears, see the sun shining brightly and we're trying to convince the world that it is night outside. But here are people flocking to our shores with what they're coming for, hard life. People go where they perceive opportunity to be. That's why we went, and that's why people are now coming. And I don't think that anything speaks more eloquently to the progress we have made as a country than to see now others finding Nevis and St. Kitts to be their home, and to come here and say, let me leave my country and come here to look for opportunity in these fair lands of St. Kitts and Nevis. I believe, Madam President, that that point should not escape any of us. Because sometimes as we engage in the to and fro of our local and sometimes petty politics, we ignore the fact that we have come so far. We have come so far that people are now flocking from distant lands to find opportunity right here. I want to conclude, because I don't want it to be said that I kept anyone here longer than necessary, to say, Madam President, that as we look forward to the next 40 years and hopefully beyond, I will echo the sentiments of my dear friend, the Honorable Spencer Brand, member for number 1, that I'm optimistic, cautiously so, that I'll be here 40 years from now. Not here. Not here. Not in the house. But that I will be around 40 years from now. To see how much further we would have progressed. But I want to sound a word of warning to all of our people, Madam President, that we do not take this island and this country for granted. That we do not take the gains that we have made for granted. That we do not assume that aura of entitlement that some of us seem to have adopted. That we recognize that only through continued effort and continued commitment to nation building will we be able 40 years from now to say that this island and this country continue to progress from strength to strength. I therefore warn against complacency. I urge our people, particularly our young people, to gird their loins and understand that nothing comes without hard work and effort. I bemoan the fact, Madam President, that I see so many opportunities available in Nevis. Scholarships that are offered for free training, and nobody's applying. Jobs, and employers saying they can't get anybody to apply. Recently, an employer said to me he wants to bring in some workers from overseas, and I said, why? Because I attended recently the graduation of one of our secondary school institutions, and by my tally, I'm sure we had over 200 persons graduating. These are young people. And I said, well, how could we have so many people coming out of school, but you're telling me you need to import people? People aren't ready to apply. I had a conversation with a young woman, has a business. Said her worker left the job. And she asked why. The worker said she's at home living her best life. I don't say these things lightly, because those of us who are old enough understood that there was a time in Nevis when there was no payday. That's why people were stowing away in boats to get to Trinidad. That's why we went to Santo Domingo, to San Pedro de Macorís, and places like that to cut sugar cane. There was no payday in Nevis. And we have come to a point now where Nevisians are saying they don't want the payday that's available. Some may see it as progress, but I warn against complacency. I warn against complacency, because it is important in these next 40 years that our people, the Nevisian people, the Kittitian people, that they recognize that they must rise up and take the controlling heights of every aspect and every facet of our development. Our politics, our economy, our education system, our healthcare system, that it is for us to build our country. And we cannot achieve that if our people are so laid back, because life has become easy. They're so laid back that they prefer to live their best life at home than to work. That we must warn against and guard against complacency. Many nations rise during an era when things are hard. If I may be allowed just another minute or two, Madam President. I mentioned people stowing away to get to Trinidad. We had a whole generation of people who got on ships, the so-called Windrush generation, and left here, hot sun, or like now so, and get on a boat and went to England that they've only ever heard of. No idea about winter, no idea about how England operates, no idea about anything, and spend weeks on the ocean, going from island to island, picking up people, with no knowledge of where they were going or what they were going to. Now, That is a portrait in courage. That is the audacity that I'm talking about. And that is the blood that we have in our veins. These are not people who somehow jumped up overnight. These are people who had that spirit that makes us Nevision and Kitishan. And I am saying that we must guard to ensure that we don't lose that spirit, Madam President. That courage, that audacity that comes from hope and comes from confidence in ourselves. Because you had to be confident in yourself to get on a ship to go to a place you don't know. Nowadays, you tell young people we have scholarships in Morocco, in Azerbaijan. They tell you that's too far. I'm not going there because that's too far. You said to them, but it's free. And you learn a foreign language. And you reflect on the difference in perspective of people who knew not where they were going, but got on a ship here in hot sunny Nevis and traveled for weeks on the ocean to get to cold, wintry England. I've been to England, and Lord, even the summer it's cold. And that's what our forefathers went to. And brave those who went there, because others went elsewhere. We have a country today because of the foundation laid by those who were brave, who were strong. And we ourselves have now an obligation to ensure that the next generation and the generation after that never forgets the sacrifices that were made so that we can enjoy St. Kitts and Nevis that we enjoy today. Our country is not perfect. No country is. Our country has challenges. Every country does. But I am convinced, Madam President, with every fiber of my being, that this country, and more specifically this island of Nevis, will continue to rise and continue to prosper and continue to do well, and that our people will be the beneficiaries of that. But to protect it, our people have to ensure that they are not complacent, that they do not stay at home and expect that this is somehow guaranteed to them, but that they understand that we must work and work and work some more, that we must work together to achieve greatness for our island, prosperity for our people, and that we can ensure the longevity of St. Kitts and Nevis for another 40 years. I salute Sir Simeon Daniel, father of Nevis. I salute him because it is his vision that all of us are today benefiting from. I salute those who have come after him here in Nevis and those on St. Kitts. I salute them all because it is important that we recognize that each and every one has made their contribution. And that thread of contribution woven together, those various strands are what create the tapestry of a strong St. Kitts and Nevis. And so, Madam President, it lies now only for me to say happy independence to St. Kitts and Nevis. Happy 40th anniversary of independence. I'm happy that we've had this opportunity for this sitting and to have heard all the voices from opposition, from government, and from our previous Premier. The other two have gone to glory. It is important, therefore, that we have had some of the past, some of the present, and hopefully a glimpse into the future. Long live St. Kitts and Nevis. God bless St. Kitts and Nevis. God bless all of those who have served and who have laid the foundation for us. And may God give us now who are here the strength to carry on, the strength to work. And may our conduct be such that those who are coming after us are inspired to continue that rich tradition of hard work and that audacity of hope that has always defined the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. May it please you, Madam President.
I would like to